So hello everyone, my name is Gareth Phillips and I'm the Managing Director of our Ipsos healthcare business in Europe, and I'm joining you today from my home just outside of London in the United Kingdom. I'm delighted to be here to share some of my thoughts on what's been happening in 2020 around the acceleration of digital and omnichannel customer engagement, and really some ideas on where we may be heading next. So what I'm going to cover today in my presentation over the next 10 minutes or so are some of the following things. So how has digital customer engagement accelerated in 2020? What are we learning from some of the key data that's available and some of the work that we've been doing at Ipsos through in this area through 2020? How is the industry responding in terms of new business intelligence needs when it comes to understanding digital customer engagement? And how are we as marketing insight professionals able to best respond in terms of helping ensure the right content is being delivered via the right channels to the right customers? So this is a story I think a lot of us will be familiar with and know very well. As of March the 11th, the World Health Organization announced the coronavirus pandemic, and literally overnight, the established ways of working stopped. Patients could not visit hospitals as easily, and we've seen some of the shocking statistics of the impact of this, for example, regarding significant reductions in referrals for urgent cancer screening, for example. In England, for example, we saw a 60% reduction in referrals at the peak of the pandemic. I know it's similar across many other countries as well. And the knock-on effect of this is going to have a huge impact over the months and the years ahead, and it'll be truly shocking when we see the outcomes diminishing. And of course, our established way of communicating between pharma and healthcare professionals with in-person medical sales rep visits, in-person meetings, in-person symposia, conferences, advisory boards, etc., all came to a grinding halt back in March of this year. And of course, we now know that this moment became the accelerant and a catalyst for a trend which was already happening across our industry, albeit perhaps a little too slowly and not always with enough funding perhaps, but the moment for accelerating the digital transformation had arrived. And in my talk today, of course, I'm referring to digital transformation regarding customer engagement via digital channels. However, as we know, digital transformation is impacting across the industry from care delivery with telemedicine through to R&D, operations. However, today we're really focusing in on the change that's happened around digital customer engagement and channels in that sense. Let me share some of the data we've been collecting from around the globe, and this is an example of some work we did in the Netherlands in September of this year, looking at how channel engagement among GPs on the left in green and specialists on the right in purple had changed between 2019 in the lighter shade and September 2020 in the darker shade. There's a lot of data here, so let me just summarize some of the key highlights for you. What we're seeing is that sales rep visits are down. They've reduced by around about 2/3 when we get to September 2020. And at the same time, there's been a significant increase, doubling in some cases, in engagement with digital channels, such as email, online expert meetings, online product presentations, etc. I know this will be a surprise, but something which is not on this slide, but we know from some of our other work that we've done this year, is that the experience and the comfort with using digital channels to engage has grown quickly as the behaviors that we've got used to have started to feel and become more normal. So in that sense, both healthcare professionals as well as medical sales teams have rapidly become more comfortable with achieving their goals to share and consume information and knowledge and in different and new ways using digital channels. And interestingly about this, the time efficiency that virtual digital interactions has enabled, both when it comes to patient consultations and when it comes to HCPs in discussions with pharma, is actually helping HCPs to be more time efficient and therefore perhaps also to be more engaged and interact more regularly with pharma as time is going on. And this is just some of the highlights of things we've been seeing in some of the work we've been doing through the course of this year. So, as healthcare professionals have become more willing to engage via digital channels and more receptive to using digital channels, what we're also seeing, as this data from the same study in the Netherlands shows us, is that healthcare professional expectations from digital channels are also increasing. And what I mean by that is what we've been doing historically on digital is not always good enough to meet today's expectations. The quality of the content needs to be high. The ease of use needs to be good. And we found it's better to use the technology that the customer is most comfortable with. So, for example, if a doctor prefers to use Zoom for a call, then we should use Zoom. If they prefer Teams, we should use Teams. If they prefer Skype, we should use Skype, and so on. So adapting to a customer's preferred way of working is really important to actually help improve the level of engagement. There's also a connection here and a question here really around digital fatigue, which comes up a lot. It's a commonly raised question when we talk about the challenges of sort of engaging digitally, and it's it's a question we're faced with as more and more digital content is being used and shared. And the learning perhaps here is that that a smaller number of high quality interactions can be more impactful at this time than going for perhaps a typical strategy of reach and frequency of interactions. And of course, it depends on the disease area, it depends on your customer base. However, it's a thought worth keeping in mind. Focus on the content and the value being brought to that particular customer at that moment in time, and that should serve you well. And maybe a final thought here, just before I move on, is that companies that appear to have done well through this period, where we've seen a lot of transformation, are those who already had a strong focus on developing their digital engagement channels, their toolkits, and they were quickly able to deploy them around the business. They had the agility, the culture, the funding, the leadership support to make things happen fast, and that's helped them actually to pivot quickly and to be successful at this current time. So where do we go next? The world has clearly changed a lot in 2020. Do we revert back entirely to the in-person approaches to customer engagement that we had before, and do that as quickly as we can once the pandemic has passed? Well, based on what we're seeing, what we're learning, we say no. We believe there are a number of underlying market trends which were already encouraging digital development to move forward, and these trends remain as relevant right now, as relevant today, as they always have been. So our opportunity is to embrace the acceleration which has been happening through 2020 and seek to find the right balance of digital and in-person engagement as we move into a more stable future. So just looking at a few of these trends, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, I have them up on this slide here. Price pressures lead to margin pressures, lead to a need for greater operational and sales efficiency, and clearly digital and using digital channels can actually play a role in helping to address that goal. Customer experience is growing in importance in pharma, and there's been a lot of talk about this subject, and clearly an omni-channel customer engagement strategy is a key part of how you can create a more customer-centric way of thinking in your organization. And the continued rise of precision medicine, rare diseases, means that customer engagement is less mass market, less homogeneous, and the agile benefits of digital and virtual engagement clearly work well when you're coming to communicating with and marketing to a much more niche customer base who may be spread out across a broad geographic region. So with all that said, as we work towards achieving sustainable change, which we believe in, we're seeing a lot of questions come in from commercial teams at our clients who are seeking to really better understand the channel landscape and work out how they can optimize their activity to get the right content into their customers' hands in the most efficient way, and really understand if the investment that's being made in each channel is delivering the greatest bang for our buck, so to speak. So for example, how is the communications channel and engagement landscape changing? What works, what doesn't work? What's the role of the field force and sales reps moving forward? How do I get greater value from my internal CRM data? How do I know if I'm on track? How do we optimize our activity? Many questions like this are coming into us at this point in time, and have really led to us doing an increased amount of support for our clients in this area. So what this led us to do is to develop a framework around which we can help to address these many questions and work towards helping our clients develop an appropriate curated mix of on and offline channels which deliver the most appropriate omnichannel experience to each individual customer. And of course, the approach will vary across disease areas. It may vary by country. It really depends upon the infrastructure, the culture, what works, and it's a very sort of individualized way of working. But typically we work through a sort of range of types of work just to really fully understand things. Firstly, we look at the current channel landscape, what works, what doesn't work, what have we learned in terms of preferences, behaviors among the target customers. We look at the mix of channels that are best at achieving the desired communication or engagement goals, and which of those should be prioritized in what situations. We look at customer segments, really important on this. We try and identify what types of customers respond in what ways to what types of channels and so on. And that allows us really to build up profiling personas, which allows us then to assign individual customers to key segments, either within CRM systems, for example, or we can also do that manually via a kind of tailored approach that sales teams can use to classify each customer and put them into an appropriate segment. And that then allows you then to tailor the messages via certain channels, or tailor the information or content being shared to those channels that will resonate most for that segment of customers. And of course, we need to measure and track performance. So doing work around how well is a channel performing, how good a job is it doing at getting a certain message across, how might we want to adjust the strategy and ensure that we're getting maximum engagement and optimal customer experience with the work we're doing. So just a few examples of some of the work we've been doing recently through the course of this year at Ipsos. This program of work I'm showing here on this slide was an innovation program, digital innovation program, quite creative in nature, and involved us working together with our client to develop some new digital tools which were based on a foundation of customer needs, essentially. And ultimately our role was to help bring new thinking, new perspectives, and the outlines of some new concepts to the team, so that we could then take those on for further testing and refinement. And there's been many questions like this that come into us, and it's sort of a very much an evolving sector, as you see how we try and explore and figure out what things are going to resonate, what's going to work in the future as the world is changing. And then the second one here, this is a case study from our team in Germany, where we helped our client to develop a persona-based segmentation in order they were able to sort their healthcare professional customers into pre-identified groups based on demographics, attitudes, and behaviors. And in so doing, this allowed this organization to then empower their sales teams to identify what segment a customer fell into, and then tailor their channel engagement approach for that individual customer based on the segment they belong to and what we were able to identify as the sort of common preferred ways of engaging for that particular segment. So we're waiting to see how this particular client is getting on with the approach, but certainly it's allowed them to be a lot more focused and tailored in the way they've been operating. So this is bringing me almost to the end of what I wanted to share with you today, and perhaps as I close the presentation, a few closing thoughts. If we're able to say so, a small silver lining of 2020 may perhaps be that it's given us the opportunity to really embrace digital and really make the most of the opportunity we have for change. As we've seen in some of the work we've been doing, doctors have become much more willing to engage digitally through the course of 2020. They've learned how to do it. They see that it works for them. Sales reps, medical reps, sales teams appear to be more willing to change their behaviors. And we still need good salespeople who can talk knowledgeably to customers. Of course we do. and they seem to be thinking about different ways in which they can do that. And on top of that, there appears to be an efficiency gain for everyone. So healthcare professionals are finding that, that this allows them to engage more openly, more freely, digest content when they want to. And for pharma and for sales teams, it seems to be working for that group of people as well. Secondly, it's really important to take a customer-focused lens when developing and driving your channel engagement strategy. And there's a couple of things on this that perhaps I haven't already mentioned, but this gives you an opportunity to really focus on using your data, your own data, your CRM data, for example, your customer data, and over time to really think about how you might build some predictive analytics, use data science capabilities to really help you better understand your customers and how you can tailor the way you're engaging with them. This may be something you're already doing, great if you are. It may be something that you'll do in time, but it's certainly something that we believe is going to grow in opportunity and really help to improve the way that we are able to engage with customers in our sector. Also, I think on this point, just knowing that digital brings flexibility is important to keep in mind. We're not locked into a sort of working day or a working week. Digital allows us to engage with customers 24/7. It allows them to engage with our content whenever they want to, be that the weekends, evenings, whatever. So having a mindset that thinks about flexibility of engaging with content is really helpful when it comes to sort of keeping a customer-focused lens on channel strategy. And then finally, there's an ending point here. Digital transformation is as much about behavior change as it is about technology. We can often launch new technologies, but if we don't get people embracing them and engaging with them, then it's never going to work. So some of our people need more help than others. Leadership helps, coaching helps. Individuals. It's really important as we work through the transformation that we help those individuals who need it more. To really understand how to make the required changes, and thinking about how you can simplify the process both from an internal perspective and from a customer's perspective to make engagement easier is really important. Fit in with customers' preferred ways of working, for example, as I said earlier. Make it easy for the internal sales teams to use the tools. All you can do on that front will really just help to accelerate engagement. And maybe a final thought also on this, because it often comes up as a question, is the how we engage with and how we bring our colleagues in compliance and regulatory along with us as we go on this journey of introducing new customer engagement tools. Get them on board early, get them to help us towards achieving our goals and building in and really understanding the risks around what we might be trying to do, and really trying to help us work around that risk is really important. So I'll at this point, I think I will stop, and brings me to the end really of what I wanted to share with you today. So I hope that was useful. I thank you for joining me and joining the team today and for listening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Gareth, for this presentation. I think it was very, very useful for our clients. And I have some questions from our clients. The first one is, what's the role of the sales force for going forward for the next years, probably?
Okay. Yes, very good question. I think a lot of people want to know, is this the end of the sales rep? Are we moving to an all digital or all sort of AI future? I mean, I think no. It's the sales rep fills a very important role. We still need very capable, knowledgeable individuals who are able to provide that connection between the industry and healthcare professionals. So it's not so much about sort of what is the rep doing, because it's a very similar role in nature, but it's more about how will they engage, how can they use different channels and different ways of engaging with customers, perhaps rather than relying primarily on the in-person visits, which was the traditional way of doing so. And sort of in recent years we have seen reps in some cases engaging more with some of the digital content and digital channels, But I anticipate as we go forward from the current situation, we'll see a much more blended environment where the role of the rep will be to actually facilitate that content and that engagement for their customer, so they're able to actually guide them to access the resources they need to at the right time for the right purposes, really. So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the other question I have here is regarding the number of channels that can be used for engaging certain healthcare professionals. Do you think there's a limit, or the max is better?
There is a limit, yes. Well, let me answer it this way. So what we can do is understand, and many people know this through sort of reach and frequency analysis. You can understand the diminishing returns you get as you add more channels into a particular messaging goal or something, whatever it might be. And sort of certainly there is a limit to what you can achieve with one particular customer. But what I would say is that it's important to have a variety of channels available, because you might want to think about how different customers want to consume information, and different segments of customers will want to consume information in different ways or engage in different ways. So it might be that you have 3 or 4 channels that work for one customer segment, you have a different 3 or 4 channels that work for another customer segment, right? So you need those 7 or 8 channels, but not all of those 7 or 8 channels are going to the same customer, if you see what I mean. They're actually being tailored and very much focused on a particular customer segment.
Okay, thank you. And regarding that point, you mentioned a lot the customer segments. Have you identified like segments or customer segments that are valid in different countries, or something that can be like more universal in the way that we engage with the customers?
Yeah, there probably are some commonalities across the segmentations. However, it's very difficult to generalize, and my advice is always that you need to do things for your own customer base. Clearly different disease areas are different countries are different. The sort of the way that the healthcare infrastructure is set up will impact on things. The cultural nuances will impact on things. So even the sort of profile of the sort of healthcare professional base you're targeting will impact on things. So it's best to have a bespoke segmentation for your particular customer base, and that way you can really be sure that you've identified relevant segments that fit within your customer base, rather than trying to apply something generic or generalized. But that is possible, but it's not always the most optimum way to ensure you're as focused as you can be.
Okay, yeah, totally agree. Thank you very much, Gareth. I think that those are my questions now. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're very welcome. Thank you.